All right, this video is the HEX ladder snowball. I'm going to explain exactly what the HEX ladder snowball is, or just ladder snowball, or you could just call it a snowball. I'm going to explain why this strategy is the most optimized strategy there is as far as HEX staking goes, and why it might be a good idea for you to consider this strategy to maximize your HEX gains and compound your HEX vertically and horizontally. If you don't know, my name's Jay, aka a pure Hexcobar. I'm sharing the most optimized staking strategy with you, and this is again something I will personally be implementing in my own investing portfolio, especially once the Pulse chain comes out. A lot of the reason why people have been avoiding staking with their HEX for a long period of time or doing a staking ladder is just simply because the Ethereum gas fees are ridiculous at this point. For the small investor or the medium-sized investor, or really anyone who's not a whale, who doesn't care about the fees, it just makes things a lot more difficult to rationalize spending that much in gas fees to do a staking ladder. So once the Pulse chain comes out, that will change. Now again, you can find me at a pure Escobar on Instagram and Twitter, and Crypto Fitness on YouTube and TikTok and Telegram as well. And of course, make sure you subscribe, like, and share, because of course we want to be able to onboard more Hexicans and PulseXs and PulseXicans, but also, of course, obviously to pump your own bags, because as you probably have a vested interest in these projects, as do I, which is why I'm sharing this information with you. You could call this HEX ladder theory if you wanted to, but I'm going to be covering 4 sections in this video. First, what is a HEX ladder? If you don't know what a HEX ladder is, if you don't know what HEX is, I'll explain briefly what that is, and then I'll go into the ladder snowball strategy. I'm then going to touch on advantages versus the disadvantages of the ladder snowball, and then how you can tailor the snowball to your own investing profile, regardless of what kind of investor you are. So let's start. What is a HEX ladder? Before we go into any of this, I have to warn you that none of this is financial advice. You need to do your own research. You need to look at the numbers for yourself, come up with how much you can invest, how much you're really willing to lose, because that's essentially what you're doing. Everything in crypto is speculative at this point, and so make sure that you do your own due diligence. So let's jump to it. A HEX ladder simply is a deposit of money that is broken up into individual portions, which are then staked, aka minted, through the HEX protocol for any given amount of time, up to 5,555 days. A little bit more than 15-year time period. If you don't know what HEX is already, if you're just literally seeing this for the first time, you're brand spanking new to HEX, then before watching this video, or maybe after you watch this video, head over to these websites. Hex.com is the main HEX website. You can also go to hexinfo.io for more information, and hexgraphs.com will give you a good visualization as to how you can visualize the protocol behind HEX and really how fundamentally it works. I'm not going to go into the fundamentals of HEX. If you haven't already looked into it, again, you can go to these websites, has some great information there. This is more a fundamental strategy video for how to stake your HEX and how a lot of Hexicans will be playing this and strategizing on how to create their HEX ladders, especially, again, like I said, once the Pulse chain comes out, because as you know, Pulse chain, once it comes out, the fees are going to be minimal. So how do you visualize a HEX staking ladder? This is essentially what a HEX staking ladder looks like. And you can see each one of these points represents one of your stakes. So the idea behind a stake HEX ladder is you're staking for the longest period amount of time, which is 5,555 days. You can see this is 2022 here. So if you were to stake out 15 years from today, you'd essentially be receiving your stake and minting your rewards in 2036, 2035, 2034, 2033, so on and so forth, all the way down the line. You're essentially doing this one time per year. That is what a basic staking ladder is. That is not the strategy of this video. That is not a ladder snowball, if you will, is what I'm calling it. This is what I'm naming it. I haven't heard anybody else come up with this strategy or anyone talk about this strategy. I'm sure that a lot of Hexicans have maybe thought about these ideas. I don't think they've been voiced, and I don't think they've been given a name, and I don't think they've really been shared between the greater HEX community, which is why I'm making this video. This is a visual representation of what a HEX staking ladder looks like. And the reason why it looks like a parabola or part of a parabola is because when you stake for longer periods of time, you are essentially earning a higher yield. And if you stake a larger amount, you're also earning a higher yield. So when you stake for a longer period of time, you're essentially maximizing your gains with your APY. But a staking ladder essentially just gives you the flexibility to take advantage of maneuverability and being able to participate in market fluctuations. So let's say there's a bull run in 2027 or 2028, and you want to capitalize on some of your HEX, maybe take profits on some of it. You could essentially free up some of your staked HEX and then cash out if you wanted to. There's a lot of different game theory and strategies that go into that. You can decide that for yourself. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual numbers of how you can visualize this if you're a numbers person. This is if you're a visual person. I'm a visual person, so I like to see the actual visual representation. All right, so here is the number chart. Okay, you can get this document. I will post the link in the description if you'd like to get this document for yourself and type in these numbers for yourself. You can essentially come in here and just replace any of these numbers with your own numbers and calculate approximately how of course you have to make some assumptions here, which I'm going to go over with you, but you can basically calculate your returns. Another website to go to is hexladder.web.app. You can also, this is a visual representation, and you can type in your own numbers here, and you can kind of see things visually. This is a great website. You can use this. Personally, I like this chart better on Google Docs, just because there's a little bit more information and there's a little bit more accuracy in it, in my opinion. I know this looks like a lot of information. When I first saw this, I was like, whoa, how do I even understand this? So first we need to just don't even look at anything except for these values right here. Okay, the first two rows here of these values. So essentially you're taking the stake size of HEX, so you're inputting however much HEX you want to stake in this field. You're going to put the number of years you'd like to stake that for. This is just telling you what the year is, and this is telling you your effective HEX. It calculates this by your T share and your share rate. And then obviously you can see the HEX divided by the share rate right here. This is going to tell you your T shares, how many T shares you own, what percentage of T shares you own. Obviously, if we're dealing with 37 HEX, that's literally like, I think right now a T share is about $4,000 or $5,000, somewhere in there. The interest estimated in HEX, and then the total HEX, and then your average percentage yield per year is here. Your end of year HEX price. So this is one of the assumptions that we are making in this chart here. And in this specific chart, this is the very, very, very conservative end of year HEX price prediction. And I'll show you, a more mild case, a medium case, a bullish case, and then a moon case. I believe that these numbers are extremely, extremely conservative, but rather be conservative than to overestimate. This is your initial USD value here, so approximately how much you're staking in USD value, and then your end staking value, and then your return on investment. So now that we understand how to look at this chart, now what we can do is we can come in here and we can input any amount of value, any amount of HEX that we want. And I'm going to show you exactly why, if you're a small fish, why this strategy is going to work in your favor. First off, the gas fees on Ethereum are ridiculous right now, so it doesn't make sense to do something like this, because on Ethereum, you literally, if you do 15 stakes, you have to pay 15 different gas fees. And each gas fee for a stake right now, it's between like $50 and $200 essentially per stake, depending on when you do it. That's ridiculous. I mean, no small fish, no small time investor, or even medium sized investor likely wants to do that, because really it's like the cost of the opportunity cost, right? It costs a lot of money right now to set up these stakes. However, if you do it anyway, you're going to get a copy of this ladder on the Pulse chain when it comes out. So you might want to debate that. That's for you to decide. Personally, I've held off on doing a staking ladder until Pulse chain comes out. I'm assuming that you can save an average of $100 every single month to do this. I personally believe that everybody out there, I don't care who you are, you can go earn an extra $100 a month. I think that's completely reasonable. I don't see any reason why anyone should not be able to do that. Even if you're homeless, I think you can scrounge up $100 a month. There's no excuse why you shouldn't be doing this, once the Pulse chain comes out. And this is the reason why I'm showing you ultra conservative numbers. You have no excuse not to do this. You have no excuse not to level your skills up and allowing your money to work for you while you sleep. Even if that's an extra $100 a month. $100 a month, we can multiply that by the going rate of HEX today. Right now, HEX is trading for 18 cents, 18 and a half cents. So if we take $100, we divide that by 0.18, let's just say that. That's 555 HEX. If you divide 555 HEX by 15 staking ladders, that's an average of 37 HEX per stake that you're going to be staking. Okay, I'm going to do this really slow so you can just visualize the math here. So, well, that's exactly what I've done here. 37 HEX per stake gives us a total of 555 HEX for that month. And the reason why I'm telling you this on a monthly basis is that is essentially what the HEX ladder snowball is. It's creating a new snowball every single month of the year, every year for 15 years, or just making it a habit and doing it permanently every single month. It's like a long-term savings account. You can put away $100 a month and you can put that in a savings account and earn 0.0000000001 interest, or whatever the ridiculous number is. Or you could throw that same money into a vehicle like HEX and compound your money a millionfold. Maybe not that much, okay? That's an exaggeration, but you get my point. How does this look? 37 HEX into 15 stake pools, or into 15 different stakes. And this is on a yearly basis, okay? It's a little too difficult to show this on a monthly basis, just so you can see the power of doing this on a yearly basis. At the end of the first year, we're assuming that the price of HEX is going to be around 22 cents. An assumption that we made with this particular chart is that the HEX price is going to inflate, see this down here, by 25% every single year. That is very conservative, especially if you've been in crypto for a long time. You know 25% is nothing in the space of crypto. Year 1 would be 22 cents, year 2 would be 27 cents, year 3 would be 34 cents, all the way up to year 15 would be $4.98. Personally, I think it's going to go a lot higher than that, but after 15 years. But again, this is just to show you the power of how much money you can be making just by doing this little bit. All in all, your final value with returns, if you do a staking ladder with 37 HEX, which is essentially $100 for the entire year. This is a yearly chart. So if you did a $100 stake for the entire year and you did that for 15 years, you'd essentially be able to cash out in 15 years $5,778. So you turned $100 into $5,000, almost $6,000. That's not bad for 15 years. You can't do that in a savings account. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. That was said by Albert Einstein. So how can we optimize compound interest with HEX? Essentially, you want to compound horizontally, and you also want to compound vertically. So what does that look like? So how can we compound vertically? We stake longer. We stake for 5,555 days. Another way to take advantage of compound interest vertically is by staking larger amounts, because the larger amounts you stake, the higher yield you're going to receive in your stake. Staking more frequently is an example of horizontal compounding, because if you stake more frequently, that gives you more opportunity to cash out in the long term. If you do it more times, over the course of time, you're also compounding. Another way to horizontally compound is rolling over your stake principal. So if you stake 1 year, the next year you'll be eligible to unstake that first initial stake. Well, what if you decided to, instead of cash out on that stake, what if you decided to roll that over into another stake? So you're essentially doubling, in year 1, you're essentially doubling the amount of HEX that you're staking for the next set of staking ladder. The last way to take advantage of compounding interest, both horizontally and vertically, is to roll over your stake principal and your interest. So you're literally compounding on top of your compounding, because you're including the interest that you made on your first year of HEX stake. So here is the chart. So this is what a low level, a fundamental snowball ladder looks like. And the reason it's a snowball is because you're compounding your money. This is one stake here. This blue line here, this first blue line, is a staking ladder from 2022 all the way to 2036, essentially, or 2035. You'd have a stake eligible to cash out of every single year until the year of 2035, and then this stake ladder is over. And you're essentially doing that 15 times. You're doing this once per year. That's essentially what a snowballing ladder is. A ladder snowball is you're doing this on a consistent basis so that you can literally create yourself a cash producing engine, a HEX producing engine. Laddering yearly is good. Okay, and again, let's take a look at an example. If we go back to these numbers, right, now that we have a visualization of what a ladder snowball looks like, if we go to the numbers, this would be the second year of your stakes. So in 2023, you'd essentially be able to double the size of your stakes because you have money, assuming that you're going to continue to put 37 HEX into a new staking ladder every single year. Then you can essentially the following year, when your stake is released, your first stake, you can double that stake size. So instead of 37, you can dump that into a new staking ladder. Does that make sense? Are you following what I'm getting at here? Do you see, are you starting to see the power behind how this works and how you can utilize this in your own portfolio? It's not going to quite be double every single year because you have to remember, you have to multiply the initial powder that you're putting in. So if it's $100, you have to divide that by the HEX price of that current time. So if in a year, if HEX goes up to 22 cents, now you're not getting 37 HEX, right? It's going to be a little bit less than that, maybe like 33 or 34 HEX. So it's not quite double, but you can see the power here. You can see the compounding starting to take effect just after the first year of doing this. And I haven't even mentioned including rolling over your interest yet. I mentioned it earlier, but we haven't really taken that into consideration. So really, it's possible you could double the amount of HEX that you're putting in the next year to compound this idea even further. Now you've got 74 HEX per stake. Laddering quarterly is an even better idea, right? Because we've talked about wanting to take advantage of compounding not only vertically, that's what you're doing with one staking ladder, is you're compounding your money vertically because you're able to participate in the long yield and a 15-year stake, and you're also taking advantage of all the staking between then, from 14 years all the way down to 1 year. So you're not going to make as many gains in the first year as you are in the 15th year, but at least you're taking advantage of the compounding interest that staking ladder gives you. Because you're building a snowball, you're also not only taking advantage of the vertical compounding interest, but now you're taking advantage of horizontal compounding interest. The reason why it's horizontal is because you're building staking ladders each year out. You're continuing to do this every single year. And over the course of a long period of time, several decades, that'll eventually start to look like another parabola in and of itself. So it's a parabola within several parabolas. That's what I mean by ladder snowball. Imagine, okay, on a quarterly basis, you have your stake here, right, from 2022. You're creating 4 stakes in between each one of these staking pillars. So imagine there's 4 more stakes in between these two, 4 more in between these two, 4 more in between these two. That's on a quarterly basis. But laddering on a monthly basis is the most optimal way to take advantage of this strategy. And here's why. Imagine 12 different staking ladders in between each one of these staking pillars. Okay, so I've got 12 here, 12 here, 12 here, 12 here. So basically 12 times 15. So you literally have 180 staking ladders between this 15-year period if you take advantage on a monthly basis. Think about that for a second. Are you starting to realize the power of this strategy and why it's the most optimal? So let's talk about advantages and disadvantages of doing this on a monthly basis. All right, stop. I'm going to take 30 seconds. And if you're getting value out of this information and you'd like to support the channel, the Crypto Fitness channel, I have my own NFT project called Beast Bros on the Cardano blockchain. You can go mint yourself a Beast Bro. If you prefer not to, you can also show your support by sending any amount of HEX, Cardano, Bitcoin, or Ethereum, and the addresses to those are in the description below. You don't have to, of course, it's not required, but you may do so if you desire. And again, the links are in the description to the Beast Bros website if you want to mint or if you just want to show your support. So let's take a look at the advantages. So the first advantage of creating a staking ladder on a monthly basis is you're essentially earning compound interest vertically, but you're also earning compound interest horizontally. So you're doing both. And you are doing this essentially with a yearly staking ladder if you just did it once per year. And you're also doing this quarterly, but you're not maximizing and optimizing how many times you can take advantage of this concept. The more frequently you create a staking ladder, the more you're taking advantage of horizontal compounding interest because there's more frequency there. And essentially you're printing yourself money every single month in 15 years. Really in 1 year, you're actually doing it in 1 year because you can do whatever you want with those gains in 1 year once the first year is released. But by doing this every single month, you're compounding that on top of compounding it. Another advantage is after 1 year, your new HEX is freed up every single month. Now, why was that an advantage? Because let's say that the bull market takes place in a January or February or March or April. Maybe there's volatile price action in that time. Now, if you only have it 1 year, a 1 year staking ladder, you're subjecting yourself to market volatility when you don't necessarily need to. By doing it on a monthly basis, that gives you more HEX to be freed up, and that gives you maneuverability. Maneuverability means you're able to pivot and make decisions based on the market conditions at the current time. You can do this 12 times per year. A quarterly basis is good too, but again, you're only doing it once per quarter. And in crypto, the price action can be very, very volatile. It can go up 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% in a matter of days or weeks. So by doing this on a quarterly basis, you're still susceptible to market volatility, more so than if you do this on a monthly basis. That's why this is the most optimized way to utilize ladder snowballs. Your money is in constant motion on a monthly basis. And it is to a degree on a quarterly basis as well as a yearly basis. Your money is still in motion, but your money is in much more motion on a monthly basis because it's more frequent. Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. That is a law of the universe, unless of course it's acted on by an outside force. Now, another advantage is you're building a good habit. You're building good, positive habits that will yield you amazing results down the line. You're thinking about the long-term future. You're creating financial security for yourself down the line. You're creating a financial engine. That's essentially what this is. It is literally a financial engine. And that is very, very powerful if you can conceptualize that idea. Some more advantages. Your money works for you while you sleep. It allows you to capitalize on bull runs. So again, like I was saying, because you're doing this on a monthly basis, you literally have HEX freed up every single month that you can choose what to do with. It allows you to capitalize in bear runs. Let's say, the first quarter, it goes up quite a bit. You take profits, you wait for it to dip, and then not only are you accruing more HEX, you have more HEX that's being unlocked as each month goes by. So that allows you to buy the dip more. But again, it gives you more maneuverability and taking advantage of these bull runs or, local peaks. You can capitalize on that. Whereas if you do it quarterly, you don't have as much flexibility. And especially if you do it yearly, you're essentially subjecting yourself to doing this once per year. Let's say that the market peaked in the first half of the year, and now you're in a bear run in the second half of the year. Well, because you did it once a month, you kind of screwed yourself there. That's why doing this on a monthly basis is the most optimal way to do this. Now, this works for older investors. I'm going to get into a little bit later how to make this strategy yours, and I'm going to show you how this works for any investor. It doesn't matter what kind of investor you are. If you're older, if you're younger, if you're in the middle, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you how you can tailor this to yourself. Again, it works for younger investors. You got low gas fees on the Pulse chain. Setting these staking ladders up is going to be very, very minimal. They're going to be pennies to set up these ladders. Okay, you can build your own legacy. You're leaving financial security to your lineage. Fulfillment. This is something that you can teach to your kids, your friends, and your family. They're all going to look up to you, and they're going to know what you're talking about because you know from example. You've been doing this. And you can teach them how to do this so that they can take care of themselves. You're teaching them to create their own financial engine. That is the power behind HEX. That is why this is such a fantastic opportunity. And no, the boat hasn't left. The boat's still here. You're still early. Pulse Chain and PulseX haven't even come out yet. When you have financial security, that gives you peace of mind. When you have peace of mind, when you're in a low-stressed state, you make your best decisions when you are in a peaceful and relaxed state. So how does this look? By doing this again, each month, right? You're creating another one, another one, another one, another one, another one. If you do this every single month, and I'm not talking about 15 new staking ladders every month. I'm talking about just doing one. Do one staking ladder every single month. You can start to see the compounding. This is what compounding horizontally looks like. Compounding vertically is creating the stake. You can see I'm vertically taking advantage of compound interest. I'm not getting as many gains here, but I'm getting massive gains here. And the difference between, this is a question that has been floating around the community a lot, is, well, I get the same APY at 10 years as I do at 15 years. Well, yeah, that may be true, but look at the gains that you're missing out on by not staking for 5,555 days. Here's 10 years right here. If you, from 2022 to 2032, 10 years. You're essentially like a 6x. If you keep those stakes in there, or you have multiple stakes, you're essentially taking advantage of an extra 4 to 5x that you would be missing out on by not staking for 15 years. That's something that it took me a while to visualize and really understand how many gains I'm leaving on the table by not having a 5,555 day stake. This is essentially going straight up after 10 years. So that's what I mean by compound interest vertically. That is vertical. You can see the verticality here. Now you can see the horizontal compounding interest if I lay over this chart over itself. You can again start to see, okay, now I'm building sideways. So that is what I mean. That is the power of this vehicle. That is, by doing this monthly, you're maximizing the amount of stakes and the amount of APY you're getting on both vertical and horizontal. I can't stress this enough, because once I understood this concept, I was blown away at what this can really do for you in the long term. So let's talk about some disadvantages. Obviously, the more times you stake, the more transactions there are. And the more transactions, the more in transaction fees. Eventually, once the Pulse chain is so popular, like Ethereum, transaction fees are going to go up. So that is somewhat of a disadvantage. Whereas if you do it once per year, you only have one transaction fee every single year. If you do it quarterly, you've got 4 transaction fees essentially per year, unless you decide to restake. Of course, then you have to pay another transaction fee. Either way, though, in my opinion, I think the Pulse chain gas fees are still going to be very, very minimal compared to where Ethereum is at now. And on top of that, by sharing the network effect of Ethereum, once users and liquidity starts to flow from Ethereum into the Pulse chain, what that's going to do is even out the Ethereum network and also even out the Pulse chain network. Pulse chain will get a little more congested, so the fees might be a little bit more. And over the course of 10, 15, 20 years, who knows, maybe there's mass adoption and the entire world is using the Pulse chain. Fees might be high. That is a reality. Could be a disadvantage. My point is by taking care of this now and by starting to make this a habit now, fees are minimal on the Pulse chain. When that happens, you can take advantage of those minimal fees. And in 10, 15, 20, 30 years, are you really going to care if you have these huge transaction fees if you're a whale? If you're a Pulse whale, a PulseX whale, a HEX whale, are you really going to care about the transaction fees? You're going to be able to afford them just fine. It's not going to be a big deal. That's just my opinion. But again, that could be considered a disadvantage. Now, this is a big one. More tax work. Obviously, if you do this once per year, you've got pretty much one taxable event. Maybe not taxable event, but you got one exchange of taxable information, one unit of taxable information, if you will. If you do it on a quarterly basis, you've got 4 times you've got to do more tax work. And if you do it on the monthly basis, obviously, it's a little bit more tax work. Is that worth the yield and the payoff? In my opinion, absolutely. I think so. It's a no-brainer to me. Now, it does require more work. Okay, you've got to do this once a month rather than once a quarter or once a year. So it is more work to do this once a month. Is it really that much work though? Because I mean, and obviously more time too. That's a factor. More time away from other things you could be doing, working in a business, spending time with your family and your friends, or whatever it is you choose to do. It does require a little bit of time. But my point is clicking a few buttons really that much time? Maybe not. It is what it is to you, and it is what it is to me. To me, that's like very minimal work. We're not talking about hard labor here. We're talking about clicking a few buttons and just being smart. And another disadvantage, you got to be consistent. Right? You got to add new powder every single month. That is one thing that you need to be consistent about. If that's hard for you, I don't think that's hard. $100 a month? Come on. Anybody can do that. Anybody can go scrounge up $100 a month. Go ask your friends. Go pick up pennies off the freaking sidewalk. I bet you if you did that every day, you could probably find $100 in a month. It's not hard. Work a couple extra hours. Find a side hustle. I'm showing you this with the most conservative numbers here on purpose. The kid who's 18, 19 years old and has never had a job, or the single mother who's supporting 4 kids and has a job. Anybody can do this. Anybody. I don't care who you are. Anybody can do this and take control of your financial future. Is that a disadvantage? You got to be consistent. I don't think so, but some might consider that a disadvantage by doing it every month, being consistent. If you can think of any other disadvantages to this strategy, I would love you to comment down below. I've had chats with the community in the Telegram chat about this, and these were mainly the main disadvantages that were thought up of or that came about. But if you can think of more disadvantages to doing this, I would love to hear about them. I would love any constructive criticism about this strategy as well. If you think there's holes in this strategy, if you think there's holes in any of my thinking, please feel free to give some constructive criticism and your opinion down in the comments. So how can you take advantage of this strategy? How can you make this your own? The point of this video is to teach you how to do this yourself so that you can be self-sufficient. Eventually, once you get to year 15, if you continue with just 37 HEX every single month and you just compound that every single year, that's assuming you're not taking advantage of any of the bull runs. You're literally just compounding it. You're rolling over all your gains into the following year. You may not do that. Maybe you'll take profits some years. Maybe you'll live off the interest, right, that you're gaining in this HEX and just rolling over the principal. This is where you can make the strategy your own. This is how you can, once you have this knowledge, once time goes by, you can make those decisions in real time to show you how you can take advantage of bull runs, how you can take advantage of bear runs. Maybe you take profits in the beginning of the year when it seems bullish at the peaks. And then later that year when it dumps, because crypto does dump, it's cyclical, then you can dollar cost average back in and continue to do this staking ladder. And you can do it with even more HEX at that time on a monthly basis. So this strategy is yours. You can utilize this however you want to. And I encourage you to do your own research and figure out the best strategy for you. And I'll show you how you can do that. Now, this is the conservative case. This is assuming the HEX price increases 25% every single year. It also assumes that the T-share rate is 5.8 and the share rate is 20,692.5, and the inflation is at 3.69. The inflation rate's likely to be a little bit lower, and the share curve is 1. So assuming these numbers stay the same, these are the numbers that you'd be able to conceptualize or speculate on in the future. Now let's look at the mild case. If the price of HEX increases 33% every single year, if the price of HEX at year 15 is about $13.32, you'd essentially be getting $15,000 for that staking ladder, assuming that the price of HEX increases 33% every single year that you do this. Here's the medium case. If the price of HEX increases 40% every single year on year. So you can see the price of HEX at year 2022, 26 cents, all the way up to $28.75 at year 15. You'd essentially be turning $100 a month or $100 a quarter or $100 a year, whatever you choose, to $35,000 a quarter, a month, or a year. And that's just the medium case, okay? Here's the bullish case. If the price of HEX increases 50% every single year, the price of HEX would be 28 cents in 2022, and then at the end of year 15, $80.94. You'd be turning $100 a month into $135,000. Like, think about how crazy that is. That's the bullish case. If this project absolutely moons and the price of HEX increases 75% every single year, to me, that's doable with HEX because it's crypto. Crypto is the most powerful asset class the earth has ever seen. And specifically with HEX, the best performing asset in the crypto space that the world has ever seen. So the price of HEX would be at 32 cents at the end of 2022, and it would be at the price of $1,443 by the end of year 15 if it increased by 75% every single year. Think about this for a second. If you did the snowball strategy, and you did that every single month for the next 15 years, you'd be turning $100 a month into $2,962,756 every single month after year 15. And if you decided to roll that over instead of taking profits every single year that your stakes are unstaked, imagine this number. Think about what that number would be. On a monthly basis, you'd be able to cash out on a monthly basis or just live off the interest of this number. And every year you do this in addition to the 15 years. So after 15 years, stakes start ending. Not only are you compounding to a much higher degree, but you're compounding with a much larger number because the previous 15 years you have already compounded. Now you're compounding your compounded stake rates. Think about that. And this is the moon, obviously the moon number. This is the absolute fucking rocket ship to Pluto number. But in 15 years, Bitcoin did a 6.9 million X in about 11 years. HEX is outperforming Bitcoin right now and has been. and probably will be, because imagine several people doing this and locking up their money for 15 years. That drives the price up. I'm talking about 37 HEX. I'm talking about $100 a month. There are going to be whales out there doing this strategy with thousands, tens of thousands, or millions of dollars. Do you see the power of this? This is going to create billionaires, several of them, and you have an opportunity to take advantage of this strategy. I don't think you quite comprehend the value here. When you sit down and crack these numbers for yourself, you'll get it. Download this page. Again, it's in the description. You can do these numbers for yourself. You can go to hexladder.web.app and put these numbers in for yourself, and you'll see the power. Expand your mind. Have a long-term perspective on this. Stop thinking about a couple months in crypto. Stop thinking about the next couple weeks in crypto. None of that shit matters, because this is a long-term game. Think about if you did this with Bitcoin. If you held Bitcoin in 2008, 2009, and 2010, and you just held Bitcoin, you'd be up 6.9 million X. Now imagine being rewarded for holding your Bitcoin through that time in a compounded way. You would be a multi-trillionaire at this point. That is the power of HEX. And people think it's a scam. It's not a scam. Just break down the fundamentals. It's like a savings account on massive steroids. That's what this is. That's why this technology is going to revolutionize the world. Once people start to understand this, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to be a future billionaire. I can promise you that. And even if you don't hit these $2 million, these massive, crazy numbers, if you go conservative, are you going to be mad at making $86,000 a month if this ends up playing out on the conservative side by using $100 a month for the next 15 years? I'm not going to be mad at that. Shit. So let's go into some of these scenarios. Scenario 1 is front loading. This is going to be designed for investors who may not want to lock up their money for long periods of time. I know there's some people out there who are just skeptical. They don't want to lock their money up for 15 years for whatever reason. Maybe you're old. Maybe you don't think you're going to be around in 15 years. Maybe you're just super ultra conservative and you don't want to take advantage of these long-term gains and lock up your money for 15 years. Whatever the case is, if you don't want to lock your money up for long periods of time, here is how you can still utilize this strategy. You can front load the staking ladder. What is front loading? Front loading, it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of evening these out, let's say you have $100 to spend every single month. So if you have $100 a month, if you divide that by the price of HEX right now is 18 cents, it's 555 HEX every single month. That is how much HEX that you have to spend on a staking ladder. Now, if you take that 555 HEX and you break it up evenly into 15 different stakes, that gives you the 37. That's where I'm getting this 37 number. However, if you took 555 HEX and you front loaded it, instead of doing 37 HEX per month, you can basically do it on a weighted scale. So maybe you have a percentage. So maybe you have, so the first year, most of your money is coming out, let's say 50%. Okay. So let's say you got 50% of your money coming out the first year, and then the other 50% you can allocate to the next 15 stakes, or the next 14 stakes, I should say. So you take 50% and you weight it. You have 50% left to play with of 555 HEX. So what is that? 220 something, 227 HEX would be divvied up throughout the rest of these stakes. Okay. And you can front load them, meaning you put more here than is down here. So the idea is you have more money coming out early in year 2022, 2023, 2024. Most of your money is coming out on these stakes, and less money is coming out on these longer stakes because you don't want to lock your money for long periods of time. Now, I'm telling you this because you can still take advantage of a 15-year stake. So you have the peace of mind knowing, okay, at least I'm leaving something. I want to enjoy my own money. So I'm going to have most of it come out in these early stakes in the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then the rest of it, I can do a small amount, a very, very small amount in 15 years and know that I'm leaving something behind to my kids. And I can also still teach this strategy to them as well and teach them how to do this themselves to make it their own so that they can continue your legacy. The point is that you're taking advantage of vertical compounding, but you're also taking advantage of horizontal compounding. It's just going to be to a lesser degree because you're taking your compounds off the table at an earlier stage than if you had more money at a later stage. It comes with less risk because you're not risking your money locked up in a stake for a long period of time. Now, of course, you can emergency unstake your stakes at any time. So if something really did happen, of course, you can unstake it. But you're going to pay penalties, and you don't want to pay the penalties because those penalties go to everybody else in the staking protocol who are keeping their word. They get rewarded for keeping their word. That is the truth engine that HEX protocol provides. That is why this is so powerful. If you do what you're going to say, you get rewarded. If you don't do what you're going to say, you get penalized. So that's front loading. Scenario 2, back loading, okay? So let's say you're a younger guy. Let's say you're 18 years old, you're 30 years old, between 18 and 30, you feel like you have a pretty good idea you're going to be around in 15 years, and you really, really want to maximize this to its fullest extent. Backload it. It's investors who want to maximize their gains but still have some maneuverability. And it's the exact opposite of front loading. So instead of 50% here, you're going to put 50% here, maybe. And again, this is how you make it your own. Do the math for yourself and see how you want to divvy up your ladders. Make sense? Are you starting to see this? There's a couple different things you got to do. You got to calculate your disposable income, put in new powder every month, commit to putting in new money, fresh money every single month, even if it's $50, even if it's $100, it's very, very doable. And then you got to decide when you're going to take profits, because at some point, everyone should take profits. You can also take profits from Pulse Chain, your Pulse Chain gains, and or your PulseX gains, and you can roll them over into these HEX stakes. Think about that. Do you see how this turns into a massive, giant snowball effect? And you're taking advantage of compound interest, which is the most powerful force in the world, in the universe, in fact. So, do you see the power of HEX? Do you see the power of what this compounding interest can do and how you can take advantage of vertical and horizontal compounding interest? That is why this is so amazing. That is why I'm so excited for this. And I haven't even talked about Pulse Chain or PulseX. Those projects could also do 10,000 X's. You can stake your Pulse Chain. You can yield farm with PulseX. And you can take those gains and roll them over into these HEX stakes. If you just take the ultra conservative, if you just did $100 a month, that's $5,000 a month that you'd be sending yourself 15 years down the road. Every month, you get $5,000. Anybody could live off $5,000 a month. That takes care of most people's basic necessities. And that's not even if you include rolling over your PulseX gains and Pulse Chain gains into these HEX stakes. Am I making sense? Does this make sense to you? If it doesn't, grab this chart, put the numbers in for yourself. You cannot afford to miss this. I'm going to repeat that. You cannot afford to miss this opportunity. It is that powerful. So if you made it to the end, comment Snowball down in the comment section below. Thank you. And if you have any questions about the Snowball strategy, feel free to comment down below. You can reach me at A Pure Escobar on Twitter and Instagram. You can reach me at Crypto Fitness on YouTube, TikTok, and Telegram. You can also email me at thecryptofitness@gmail.com and give me a few days to get back to you to answer any questions. And again, I'm sharing this with you because I figured this out for myself. This is the strategy I'm going to be employing myself. And you can do this with however much money you want. Make sure it's disposable income. Make sure it's not money you actually need. Essentially, this is income that you are going to forget about. You're just going to pretend like this money never existed, and you're going to do this, and you will be, I promise you, you will be happy. Actually, I don't promise you because you cannot have any expectations of profit from the work of others, so I can't promise this to you. But if you do this, you will most likely be a very happy camper. All right, take care. Stay savage.